I am Kyla Carter. I am the mother of Wendell Carter Jr., affectionately known as Ma Duke. When I am a business manager, I am a dual degree in banking and finance and managerial finance, as well as a master's in higher education and student services. With that, I was excited to join up with my son once he got to the league as his business manager. And I think I've got the greatest client in the world. I'm very excited about another edition of a Platform Squares Camp and Education series. This is really exciting for us, for me particularly, because this was a goal that we had when my son came to the NBA, is for us to make sure that he continued his education. So in doing that, I thought, you know what, let's continue the education for your community. So this is what spawned the whole education and basketball series that we're doing as his camp series, and being able to do it virtually is real, has even worked out even better for us, because we thought it would be a strain since we're used to doing camps in person.
What's going on, everyone? My name is Wendell Carter Jr. with the Platform Square. For people who don't understand what a Platform Square is, it's just a simple foundation used to educate and elevate the younger generation. Today, we'll be having a small panelist discussion about financial literacy. I feel like this topic is very, very important. I feel like it's not talked about enough in our communities, especially with what is going on in the world today. I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to have this discussion. So let's dive right in.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Amobi Okugo, first generation Nigerian American. I currently play professional soccer, and I'm the founder of A Frugal Athlete. Essentially, A Frugal Athlete is an online financial media platform that promotes prudent financial practices and smart career decisions amongst professional athletes and student athletes. I'm passionate about money management and personal finance because it allows you to have leverage in your life, and a lot of issues that come up with our day-to-day center around finance and personal finance. So if we can understand finances more, if we can understand money more, it helps us make sound decisions with our day-to-day activities. But thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to speaking with all of you.
My name is Justin Anthony. I'm in wealth management for Morgan Stanley here in downtown Chicago. I'll tell you what, we certainly miss Wendell here. His presence and his time for the Bulls was phenomenal. I'm sure you're getting a lot of great weather now that you're in Orlando, but we greatly miss you here. So, but I've been here my whole life. And outside of Morgan Stanley, I also run an AAU program called Epic Hoops. So this is great opportunity. Love being able to share information and resources that we need in our community, especially with the young adults. So thanks for having me.
My name is Taryn Bushrod. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, currently based in Washington, D.C., and I am a money mindset coach from the Money Playbook, helping professional athletes improve their relationship with money and spending habits.
Thank you. Again, appreciate the opportunity to join you. I'm Chuck Ross, Dr. Ross. I'm a professor of history and African American studies at the University of Mississippi. I teach African American history, sport history, and I have the privilege of being friends with Kyla and Wendell Sr. Known them for a number of years, and this opportunity to talk about financial literacy is a great opportunity, and I look forward to it. Want to maybe try to dive in and give some responses to these really great questions.
So with that, we've got a few questions that we'd like to ask our panelists regarding financial literacy in our community. And those questions are: what are typical strong financial goals for teens and young adults?
The goals for financial teens and young adults should be to have your financial playbook in order. I think a lot of times we hear what this person's doing, what that person's doing. But like my dad always told me, there's many ways to the top of the mountain. So it's important to figure out what you are passionate about, what you understand, and then go from there. From there, I would say budgeting, and then understanding the concept of compound interest as it pertains to saving and investing. Because as a young adult or a young teen, you may not be making, your highest point of money, but if you start early, it will help you long term down the road more than you know. So whether it's $5, $10, $100 over a set duration, it all adds up. But within that, you have to have a budget, and then overall, you have to have a whole financial playbook strategy. So that's kind of my 3-step guideline for young financial teens and adults.
Keeping it simple. It really comes down to saving and getting used to having money. So I think as young adults and as teens, if we can build habits that are going to translate to their adulthood, that's really what the focus should be. And so whether it is an allowance, if they do odd jobs and get gifts, if they have a job, it's really figuring out how do we start to budget and how do we always save something. And just building that habit, building that muscle memory of saving money, having money, and just getting used to that. So those are the two main points, I think, for young adults or for teens and for young adults to build when it comes to money and saving money.
My perspective is very simple: understanding how money works and what your relationship with money is. A lot of times we want to put a dollar amount or say have a savings goal, but I'm of a firm belief you can make money, but managing it and maintaining it, that all stems from your mindset, how you relate to certain things, your background. So getting a good handle on how you feel about money, how money makes you feel, those are some of those key indicators that are going to take you a lot further when you learn to apply the basics of managing money, budgeting, creating those kind of healthy habits. But getting that relationship with money tied up as early as possible is my best advice for financial goals.
I feel like it's definitely good to hear from, a person who's actually going through it right now. I've been blessed to be in the situation I am right now, but with that comes greater responsibility. So I feel like for myself, um, and I feel like this can go for anybody. Just a good goal to have is to, like Dr. Ross was saying, to begin with is have a good budgeting habits. Just find ways to be able to enjoy your money or enjoy whatever you're working for. But at the same time, you have to also have a conscious of you want this money to last you, to where you're able to retire at whatever age and be able to live comfortably. So I feel like probably the main goal for a young person is to just budget correctly. Just look into the future. Know that eventually you're going to get married. Eventually you're going to have kids. And those are the kind of things that you have to just take into consideration because um, time doesn't stop. The longer you put things off, the more stuff will build up, and then it'll be too late at some point. So um, I think that's definitely a huge thing, and also just educating yourself on what exactly it means to be financially literate. Like I know we talk about it a lot. We talk about like just me right now, me telling someone that hey, you got to budget correctly. I feel like the only way you really know how to budget is for you to do your history, do your homework, and do your due diligence, and really understand what it means to budget, what it means to invest if you have investment opportunities, what it means to actually to save your money. What is it like? what do those things mean? So I feel like um, that's that's probably the second biggest thing in my opinion is just to do your do your homework on those things so you know exactly what's going on, and you're not relying on anybody else. You can kind of rely on your own understanding of things.
In terms of typical strong financial goals for teens and young adults, I think the first thing is to try to slowly begin to establish a kind of credit history, whether it be opening a savings account, a checking account, getting a job, particularly if you're maybe in high school or college, I think are all great ways to begin to take on the ability to establish a good kind of financial history, and more importantly, understanding responsibilities in terms of, in essence, being able to pay bills. If you're in college, if you have an apartment, you want to be able to pay your rent on time, because these things will go to your credit history. And I'll talk about that here very, very, very shortly.
Does money change value?
Money change value? That's a great question, especially with where we are today, right? So, there's a couple ways of looking at this. One is inflation. And I didn't know what that meant for a long time. But the way that it was explained to me was when my mom and my grandma used to always tell me that a burger would cost them a dime, or a gallon of gas was 25 cents way back when, and now we see gas is $3 a gallon, and burgers are far from a dime. That increase is what we call inflation, and all that means is that over time, the dollar that you hold in your hand is worth less money years from now than it is today. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're keeping up with that, and we're growing our money, we're growing our value. And so we're able to do that by saving and investing, right? And having our money work for us and not just sit there and actually lose value over time. So, so when we look at that, again, inflation, what that does is it makes us lose the value in our dollar, and we want to fight that, right? We want to go against that by investing and actually gaining money or gaining value in the money that we have.
I believe money changes values. Hopefully, it's tough, because everyone tells you what to do with your money. But they're not the ones that have the money. So it's important to stay disciplined. It's important to have the right team around you to hold you accountable, because with young athletes, you see, some of them are making millions of dollars. So who am I to tell them not to, take care of their family or not to, reward themselves on occasion? I think the most important thing is to stay within reason and to make sure you have your overarching goal in line. Yes, it's important to enjoy, but you have to. I would rather live like a prince forever than like a king for only a few short moments. So when it comes to money and changing your values, I think it's important to have that long-term goal in mind, and then go from there.
Tremendously great question. I think that all is based around the individual and the individual's characteristics, individual's values, individual's history. It's going to have an effect one way or the other. The more money you have, arguably, the more things, material items that you may accrue, things you may spend money on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to have a maybe negative or positive effect on your personality. I think your core values will simply be exacerbated by the amount of money or opportunities that you have. Clearly, the more money you have, again, you're probably going to spend it on things, whether it be clothing, cars, houses, your family. And the less money you have, the more you're going to have to be more responsible in terms of staying within your kind of financial budget.
I mean, we even just think about on a day-to-day basis, currency exchange rates is always changing. Maybe the dollar is in charge today and the euro is in charge tomorrow. So we always have that aspect working for and against us.
What are some advantages and disadvantages of credit cards?
I am one of positive mindset, so I only want to put things in the perspective of advantages. And I think that we can do a better job of educating those advantages and leveraging credit versus putting up that mental barrier that makes it a taboo or a thing that we're not comfortable navigating in. Those are some of the things that I like to stay away from, but learning how to leverage credit to create money is definitely an advantage. Being obedient, I'm going to go ahead and do this. A disadvantage of a credit card is misuse of credit cards. So if we can highlight the positives of learning how to leverage credit to your advantage to create money, not to utilize it to pay for things that you can't cover in cash currently. Those are some of the things that you want to have a clear indicator on before you start adding credit card on top of credit card on top of credit card.
Credit cards are a double-edged sword. They can be tricky and they can be very, very helpful at the same time. I think when it comes down to it, we want to be good stewards of our money. We want to be smart with what we have, and we don't want to overspend. At the same time, we want to make use of whatever tools are out there, right? So credit cards is a tool that we can use. And what I mean by that is one of the advantages of it is it helps us to build credit long term, right? So they give us a certain balance. We're able to use it. And as long as we pay that off, we're in good standing and we're building credit. On the other hand, it is imaginary money, right? Or at least it feels that way initially. And so we can spend money that we don't necessarily have, which I'm sure you can see can easily get you into trouble. So when it comes to credit cards, what you want to do is really be smart with it. Don't spend more on a credit card than what you have in the bank. But we can use it to help build our credit over time if we're smart with it and we don't overspend.
This is a very, very, very great question because one of the things I have really kind of an issue with personally is watching students when they arrive on campus getting credit cards. Credit cards are a instrument that can be something very, very, very negative. They can also be very positive. It depends upon how the individual deals with the responsibility. Credit cards come with typically an interest rate, and they also come with penalties when you do not pay off the amount that they want you to pay each month. And so they can help you, of course, build credit because if you pay them on time, you pay them off, then they will extend you more credit. And this is a way for young people, particularly young people between the ages of about 18 and about 22 or 23 that are just going to college. This is an opportunity for you to build credit. On the other hand, I'm a little, I am a little concerned as an older adult now that I see young people that filling out applications to get credit cards when they first arrive on campus, but they may not necessarily have a job. And so the idea is that, well, you know, even if I run up debt in the amount of maybe $500 or less, it's not necessarily a big deal. But either your parents are going to have to help you, or what's going to happen is you're now beginning a kind of cycle which you really don't want to begin, which is to establish kind of negative credit history. And so you have to be very, very, very responsible and very judicious with the way in which you handle credit cards, and you need to pay them regularly. You need to try and not have outstanding balances because these things are all going to follow you in terms of your credit report.
Well, when it comes to advantages and disadvantages of credit cards, it really depends on how you look at it. From the advantage standpoint, you're able to, pay for larger purchases over a period of time instead of paying one large purchase at once. So, for example, if you, as an athlete, if you move into a new location, you're paying for furniture, you're paying to get adjusted to the new city and the new home. But the biggest disadvantage is you have to owe a lender money, and you can never be financially free if you owe somebody money. Obviously, there's different mechanisms around debt and leverage and different things like that. But if we're going to keep it basic, credit cards, if they're not paid over time, they tend to increase, and you're already in a hole, but you don't want to dig yourself a deeper hole because you don't understand the mechanisms around having a credit card. So there's both advantages and disadvantages, but it's important to understand what you're getting into when you do or if you sign up for a credit card.
How can young adults begin building credit?
I think the main thing that we want to do, especially as teenagers and as young adults, the main priority needs to be not to have bad credit, right? So you can have bad credit, you can have no credit, or you can have good credit. And at the end of the day, I'd rather have no credit than have bad credit. So that's the first step, right? And I think to do that, we just don't get ourselves into debt, quite frankly, right? We don't spend more money than what we have, whether that is credit cards, whether that is student loans, whatever it may be. We want to be smart with the way that we go about using the money that we have. Now, that being said, there are certain areas that are what we consider good credit, such thing as bad debt and good debt. I mentioned student loans. That can be good debt, right? And what I mean by that is it's an investment. It's helping you to advance further in life. And oftentimes we can get it for very, very cheap. So as we're establishing credit, we will have to have some debt, but it's things that we want to be able to pay off. So these are the three biggest ways that I would say to build your credit. One is to make sure that you're paying your bills on time. It seems very, very simple, and it is, but we just have to make sure that we stay on top of it. So pay your bills on time. Number two is once you have a stable job, you want to find a credit card with the least amount of fees and the least amount of interest possible. And with that, a great way to establish credit is to just pay for something very simple and very small. So I typically recommend paying for gas if you have a car, or something just every couple weeks that you're going to be able to pay for it and pay it off at the end of the month. That's going to be a great way to establish credit as well. And then the last piece is something that you can't do overnight, and I think that's a great point. Establishing credit and any good financial habit takes time, but the last piece of it is just be consistent. So that's number three, is make sure you're paying those bills on time, make sure you're staying up to date, and not overspending. And over time, you just consistently start to build credit. Anything good when it comes to finances cannot be done overnight. So be patient and be consistent.
Through the proper use of a credit card. Now, what I think of proper use is versus what you think of proper use is definitely going to vary, but utilizing it responsibly, understanding how to maximize what type of credit card you're in. For starting, I have now come to the firm belief that if you use a charge card first and create that habit of knowing that whatever I spend, I have to pay it off immediately when the bill is due, or I'm going to be looking at some serious interest for not paying that bill off timely. Creating that habit will definitely allow for you to have a better financial habits as you get other credit cards for whatever reason, but definitely no overusage, no going over the limit, being conscious of why you actually need and want a credit card. Those are things that are going to shift the way that you actually utilize the card. That I would like to give on building credit. So I mentioned starting with a charge card, but we can go one step prior and start with a prepaid card. So if you set your money management plan up to the point where you know how much money that you'll actually spend in certain categories, for example, let's just say $500 a month, I utilize that to buy groceries, eat out, shop, whatever, the dry cleaners. I know that that's my target spending amount. So I'm putting that $500 on a prepaid card. And that way, when that money is gone, I know that I no longer have money to spend on these particular items for that month. That starts to create that habit where now, once you're moving to a charge card and then a credit card, now we've already kind of indoctrinated ourselves like, hey, I've spent that amount of money. The card is cut off until the next month.
Great question. Because I remember my rookie year, I had no credit, and I couldn't even get an apartment after I signed my first contract, because when it comes to credit, it's basically your ability to repay a loan or an advance on money. So in terms of ways to build credit, hopefully you can establish whether it's a secured credit card at a minimal rate, so you can pay that over time, especially if you're a young adult or young teen. We're not expecting you to have thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of dollars, but it's something where you can, pay off like a small bill. Other ways you can build up credit is if you put something in your name. So, for example, like a Netflix subscription. Basically, you want to show that you are trustworthy in the sense of paying your bills, paying a loan back, different things like that. And I wish I would have known that when I was a rookie.
Of course, there's a number of ways. I talked about establishment of either a savings account, a checking account, getting some kind of a job, even if you are, for example, a college student. Just talked about credit cards. It's another way to establish credit. And also, if you, for example, rent an apartment, or if you have the ability after getting out of college, buying a home, you need to pay on those things on a regular basis. You pay those bills associated with either an apartment, whether it's electric bill, whether it's a cable bill, phone bill. All of those things are very, very, very important in terms of making sure you pay them on time, because your credit report will show a payment history, and that will have an effect upon you, particularly if you're a young adult when you get ready to try and purchase a home.
How may young adults begin building good budgeting habits?
First, by not getting caught up on the word budgeting or budget. It has such a restrictive tone, and I fall into this place of, I don't do budgets. No budgets. But you also have to make sure that you are absolutely 100% taking care of your money. So I am a firm believer of a money management plan. It's laid out the exact same way, but conceptually, I'm a very conceptual person. So conceptually, it allows you to operate a little more free flowing versus saying, I can only spend $200 on eating out. Sometimes you might spend a little bit more than $200 or a little bit less, but when you put that line item in a budget, and it's almost like finito, it could create some anxiety from people, not just myself. I've counseled quite a bit of people and they share that experience. But yeah, money management plan is the way I go. I do subscribe to a 50-30-20 money management plan. 50% of your earnings come for your living essentials. 30% is flexible spending, things that might not be the same this month versus next month. A good example is obviously gas and groceries. Those are things that will fluctuate. And then 20% for your financial needs. So your savings, investing, and debt repayment.
That's tough, just from, my friends, my family, some of my best friends, when they first got, we were all young, and, when we're young, we have no sense of, how hard life can really be when it comes to finance. When we're young, we just, we get some money. We just feel like, oh man, we could just go spend this. We're gonna be able to get some more, you know what I'm saying? When we get gifts from my grandparents or from my mom, we feel like, oh man, we can just go spend this money. And we don't understand that, you know, I mean, it's kind of an extreme example, but it just shows that, at a very young age, we really don't have a sense of what money is at all. Um, but, for myself, as I got older, I really look back on, just those situations, like I said, they're a little bit extreme, but I look back at those situations and it just goes to show that, man, I feel like the younger, the better. And I feel like as a young adult, um, when it comes to budgeting, I mean, you kind of, everybody's budget is different. And I feel like you learning about yourself, like really, looking at how much you spend a month, like going to a month blindly. Don't think about, oh man, I can't do this, I can't do that. Do everything you want to do, and look back on the month and see, okay, what did I actually need? What was I persuaded to get? What did I do that didn't need to be done or could have waited till 2 or 3 months from now when I had a little bit more money, or um, just stuff like that. And then that's how you kind of begin to build your budgeting system because, like I said, everybody's budgeting system is different. Mine is different from my teammates, and my teammates is different from their parents. Everybody's is different. So I feel like you just knowing what you like, what you don't like, what you feel like is a necessity. Like Dr. Ross said, you just gotta be able to decipher what you want and what you need, and make sure your needs are always done. And whichever you have left over after you either saved or invested your money, whatever you have left over, then you can spend that on the wants. And I feel like that would be a great opportunity for you to learn how to budget yourself. And then, as you get older and you start to gain more money, it'll be a little bit more easier. I mean, it'll still be tough because more money becomes more responsibility, but you'll still have an idea of, what exactly it takes to budget.
This is a very, very good question because you typically don't have a class unless you're maybe an accounting major or something in college. But the ability to have a checking account, to pay your bills either through a checking account or at this point now, doing it online, making sure you have enough money in your account. If you just have automatic withdrawal, which is something I don't like to do. I like to pay my debtors when I get paid. I like to establish responsibility. But some people now in today's age are very comfortable allowing electronic transfers to take place, but you need to have enough money in there in your account. And you also need to begin to make decisions about need and want. Do I need this pair of jeans that are $200, or do I want this pair of jeans that are $200? Do I need this pair of tennis shoes that are $200, or do I want this pair of tennis shoes that are $200? When I look at my budget, does it make sense for me to purchase shoes that are maybe $70 or $80, or purchase shoes that are at $200? Do I need to take a vacation where I spend $2,000, or do I need to take a vacation where I spend maybe $1,000? And so these are all decisions that you have to make in terms of budgeting. And it is very, very, very important because each kind of individual decision that you make, whether it's $200 or $500 or $1,000 or $2,500, will all have an effect upon you long term. Because invariably with budgeting, young people need to be cognizant of everything is going along very, very well. And then all of a sudden, you need a transmission in your car. You need to have something done in your home. A water heater goes out, or you have to replace something electrical in your home, or you have to put a roof on your house. All of these things, and that's what life is all about, is that you need to be able to budget. And budgeting, largely from my perspective, is something that requires you to do some saving, because you never know what's going to happen in the future in terms of bills that you're just not prepared for that may potentially come up.
So we touched on this a little bit earlier, is really building that muscle memory, right? If you're a sports person or a basketball person, when you go to the free throw line, you do the same routine over and over and over. Every single time you step to the free throw line, you do the same routine. And it's just building muscle memory. You don't have to think about it, you just do it. And so I think as early as possible, if our parents can help when we're really young, and then once we become a teenager and get older, we can take over, take charge of it ourselves. It just is figuring out what is your income, what are your expenses, and making sure that you put into your budget a specific amount that you want to save on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever it is for you, and just being consistent. And the way that we want to look at it is, think of your savings as a bill. So just like you have to pay for your phone bill, you have to pay for a car note, you have to pay your rent, you have to pay for whatever it is that you have to pay for every single month. We want to think of our savings that exact same way. And I think if we can target to start saving at least 10 to 15% of every check that we get, you're in a really, really good spot to build that muscle memory. Regardless of that, wherever you are, figure out what is that number that's comfortable for you. Maybe it's a little bit less, maybe it's more, but whatever it is, figure out what is that number that's comfortable and do it every single time that you get money. Put it away, don't touch it, into your savings account and let that build. And over time, it just becomes second nature and you don't have to think about it. It's just what you do.
Those can build good budgeting habits simply by writing down everything that they have. So from expenses to income. So if you're a young adult and you get an allowance, you'd write that on one side. If you just take a piece of paper, you'd write that on one side. And then on the other side, you'd write your list of expenses. And then from there, the biggest thing is staying organized. And like school, you have like a syllabus or you have a homework planner. The same can be applied when it comes to budget and your finances. So for me, when I was younger, I just listed everything out because that's the best way to stay organized. You have to know what's going on. And then from there, based on the strategy that you may want, there's plenty of different budget strategies that you can use. I think it's important to find one that works for you. Some of the basic ones are 50, 30, 20, where you will allocate 50% of your income or your allowance or whatever you're getting to necessities. And then, 30, 20, depending on how you look at it. Some people allow it for savings, the 30%. Some people allow that for wants, depending on your preference. And then 30, and then the remaining 20 for, if you picked wants, then it would be savings. If you pick savings for the 30%, then the 20% would be wants. There's zero-based income budget. There's the envelope method. There's so many different strategies, and I'm sure you guys will go through it in future learnings. But from the standpoint of budget, the most important thing is to list everything out so you have a clear understanding of what's coming in and what's coming out.
How does credit history work?
I like to tell a story before I get into credit history. So imagine you're in school and you have an extra pencil. Depending on the student, when it comes to letting someone borrow your pencil, you're always wondering if you're going to get it back. So there's some students, you're never going to get it back. They chew on the pencil, they lose it, whatever. And there's always another student that will give it back to you after the end of class. So that's why I wanted to just give that little analogy when it comes to credit history. But when it comes to credit history, they talk about your payment history, your amount owed, your length of credit. So depending on if you already have existing credit, how long it's been over the course of time, any new credit that you've taken into account, and then the type of credit that you currently have. So whether it's credit card debt, or credit for a house that you bought or a car, all these factors take into account, and that's in your credit history plays a role.
Credit history is a combination of your debts, your payment history, and public records. And in full transparency, I had a public record from college, believe it or not, because I had some issues with room and board, and apartment housing from campus gave me a judgment, and that was a thing. But again, remember I said I'm a humble brag on almost at the 800 Club. It's because of things like that. So a lot of cautionary tales, but I mean, my best advice is please, please, please pay your debts on time.
Listen, credit history is very, very important. When you begin to enter into the workforce, if you have a social security number, then you're going to have a credit report that's going to follow you. And this credit report is going to indicate several key things. Number one, where you work and the amount of monthly income that you have. And it's going to have that monthly income broken down basically grossly and netly. And then from there, it will have various bills that you potentially may have accrued, whether it be a mortgage, whether it be credit cards, whether it be car payments, whether it be personal loans that you may or may not have, medical bills. All of these things are on your credit history, and it is your responsibility. You can request a credit report, and then they have a number. I think a perfect credit report is 800 or 900, somewhere in that number. And then you want to stay in the 700 to 600s in terms of your credit report, because if you decide that you want to get a loan, to get another car, to maybe do a second mortgage on your home, to expand your home, whatever the case may be, put another room on it, on your home, whatever the case may be, your credit report will all be taken into consideration when you try to go through that. You go through that process.
How soon is soon enough to begin building strong financial practices?
Again, I focus on relationship with money. So as soon as you have good motor skills and you can talk and you can walk and you can eat on your own, that's how soon we should be getting started. I often feel that we are so far as a culture behind the 8 ball in terms of money acumen altogether. Like what I know now, if I knew some of these things a lot earlier, I don't know where I would be in life, but my guess is I would be much further along financially on my financial goals. Even my financial goals would have been stretched past what they are now a lot sooner. So definitely the earlier the better. I think it's very great that we are putting an emphasis on this overall as a culture, as people, as it's a hot topic and it's no longer taboo, or it's becoming less of taboo. And I think that's a great step in the right direction.
If you can't do it yesterday, then start today. At the end of the day, we want to do this as early as possible. I think, especially in my community, it's one of those things that we don't talk about this enough, and we don't set ourselves up early enough. But I think if parents can do it when they have their babies, if they can do it for their babies, that's the best time. And then as soon as a child starts getting money, hopefully, parents are teaching that we need to put money away. Again, just establishing the habit of saving money. That's the most important thing. And when you're old enough to take responsibility for, take control over your own budgeting, over your own savings as early as possible. So, like I said, if it's your allowance when you're 7, 8, 9 years old, if it's your first job when you're 15 or 16, whenever it is, we want to start as early as possible. Like I said, if not yesterday, then today will do.
You know, I think right away, young people, teenagers, you're 16 and you get a job working fast food, you need to then not just cash your check. I think that you need to open up a savings or banking account. From there, you need to try to put as much money in. You need to then have a budget. And you need to begin to understand many of the concepts that I've talked about. Maybe potentially you can talk with your parents about some long-term goals of saving to be able to go to college, maybe potentially get a car, maybe potentially to begin to buy your own clothes. And then this begins to help you make decisions about items that you may want or may not want. When you get to college, the same thing is in place. And so I think, 16 or 17 is a perfect age for young adults to begin to make decisions about great financial practices.
It's never too soon. I'll just leave you guys with a quote that was told to me. You know, the best time to start your financial goals was 20 years ago. The second best time was today. So don't be discouraged about where you're at right now. The biggest steps got to start with something small. Just put one foot in front of the other and continue to climb. But yeah, the best time to start is today. We can't go back into yesterday. So you don't have to wait to save a certain amount before you get started, or you don't have to wait till things, kind of get in line. Just start today, and, small increments will build up over time.
What is important to look for when choosing a bank?
I think first you have to start within, understand what type of relationship you are looking for your bank. Do you have the need to have a interpersonal relationship? Do you want to know or need to have a personal banker? If those are the case, then and you're looking for more of a traditional bank, then you want to make sure that they have good accessibility. Maybe their online platform is important. Customer service is going to be important across the board. Definitely more on the traditional side of banking, you want to make sure that they have no to low fees as much as possible. The fact that some of these big banks still charge for checking accounts in some sort of way is kind of completely bothersome to me, but those are things that you definitely want to pay attention to. The type of products that they offer. Every financial institution is different. Rates for sure. I personally think that a lot of the digital banks are surpassing traditional banks. But again, it all comes down to what your purpose is for opening the bank account and how you're going to utilize it and what you need from that financial institution.
Banks have a lot of components to them. Many people look at banks from the entity that it's a place to put your money to save money. Banks are really not in the business of holding people's money. Banks really are in the business of loaning money. And for many people, the idea is you want to put your money in a bank in which you feel it is secure. Most banks insure your money up to about $250,000, as long as they're insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC. That should be on the window of the bank. And then they have a lot of different things in terms of they can let you have a credit card. They're only going to give you a small amount of money in terms of interest on a checking account. You can buy CDs from a bank. But also what you want to be able to do is, particularly when you get ready to graduate from college, the idea of maybe now buying a home or purchasing a home is a very, very, very important step in the mature process of becoming a young adult. And you have to make a decision, because when you start talking about borrowing money, whether it be, let's say, $100,000 or $200,000 for a home, or maybe $300,000, there are various interest rates that banks offer based upon all of the things that we kind of talked about. They're going to look at your credit history, and the stronger your credit history is, the more reliable they feel about giving you this money, the more comfortable they feel about, more confident they feel about giving you this money. And so you're going to get a much, much better interest rate. It's a big, big difference on $200,000 over 30 years at 3% interest as opposed to 6% interest. That's a lot more expensive money at 6% interest. The same thing happens in terms of being able to go to a bank and get an automobile. If you got your first automobile and you didn't pay on a regular basis, and you got the automobile as a co-signer with your parents, but yet you were the person that's driving the car, but you only you paid very, very late, then you finally got out of college, and then when you get ready to go and try to buy another car, they're going to look at your credit history. And invariably, when you start talking about your interest rate, there's going to be a very, very, very big difference based upon how responsible you were in terms of paying on time. Trust me, I'm talking about things that I experienced firsthand. This is not something I've read about. I made a lot of mistakes as a young adult in terms of not being the most responsible person when it came to being very, very financially responsible. Particularly paying certain kind of bills, maybe medical bills or my car note, car insurance. All of these things are very, very, very important that you need to be cognizant on.
So I think when you're doing that, one of the first things that comes to mind is that you just want to find somewhere that's going to have minimize the fees. Right. At the end of the day, we want to be very, very responsible. We want to make sure that we always have money in the bank. We want to make sure that all of our transactions are covered, or whatever it may be. But a lot of times banks have fees for this and for that. And so regardless of how diligent you are, there's probably going to be something that comes up at some point in your life that a bank will want to charge you a fee. And if we can minimize that, that's the first thing that I would look at. From there, I think the world that we're living in, obviously we've gone through COVID. We are getting more and more digital. So the second thing I think that you want to look at is you want to find a place that has digital offerings, right? So whether that is online bill pay, you want to be able to go online and check all of your balances. You want to be able to go online and move money or do it directly from your phone on an app. You want to make sure that you have those options. And I think also the other piece that a lot of people are using is whether it's Venmo or Zelle or whatever it is, a lot of banks now are making it to where you can transfer money to and from. So if you go out for pizza with a friend and you pay for it, you ideally would like to get that money back as quickly as possible. And if you have a bank that has Zelle in particular, but some way to transfer money to you, that's the other piece. So keep the fees as low as possible. You're going to hear that as a recurring theme, whether it's a bank or anything else, a credit card. So we definitely want to keep the fees low. And then the other piece, I think, in this world that we live in, and it's going to this route more and more, if we can have the accessibility and access to it online, I think that will make things a lot easier and more enjoyable for you.
For me, I actually started off at a bank that I later then changed in my second year in the league. So, I kind of went into my first decision kind of blindly, didn't really do my due diligence on, what exactly the bank does for its clients. And not to say the bank was bad or anything, it's just, it didn't fit my my habits. It didn't fit my goals in life. So I feel like I said earlier, just doing your due diligence, doing your history, doing your homework on these banks or whatever bank that you want to choose to make sure it supports and is going to help you for the future. I feel like for myself, I'm really huge on educating yourself, when it comes to these kind of things because um a lot of people don't really understand that um understand the whole financial world. And just picking up a book, listen to an audiobook, listening to something, just doing something in that field would definitely help where um you're able to apply that to your real world. And I just feel like um it's just important to do your history when it comes to choosing a bank. Banks, every bank does is specializes in one thing or two things or whatever. And you just got to pick the one that's best for you and that's going to help like actually benefit you and your goals. And I feel like that's the most important thing. Let me
In
see.
choosing a bank, it's really important to have a relationship with them. You want to be able to, be able to trust them first and foremost. But you want to be able to go to the bank and have a relationship, whether it's with your bank teller or whoever you use or whoever you frequent and build a relationship at that establishment. You want to understand the details behind the contract you're signing. So depending on if you sign a debit card, you have a checking and savings account, you have a money manager within the bank that you work with, you got to understand the details of your relationship and contract. And then the fees. I think the fees is a big thing that a lot of people overlook. They just put money in the account and they want to open up a bank account, but there's a lot of things that you have to look for from that standpoint.
Are there any financial resources you recommend for our youth?
There are a couple apps that I would really recommend. One, there's so many budgeting apps. You name it, where basically you link your credit cards, your debit cards to it, and it tracks everything that you're doing. Not only that, but then it puts it into specific categories, so you know how much are you spending on food, how much are you spending on clothes, how much are you spending on XYZ. And I think that's a great way to stay in tune with everything that you're doing, everything that you have going on, and it helps you to then make decisions. Do I need to really check how much I'm going out to eat, or this or that? So that's one. The other one, my world is investing. So I think if we can start to build our knowledge as far as investing goes, we can be more comfortable, and that's a great opportunity to have more money, have more wealth. And there's a great app called Rapunzel. And in Rapunzel, you're able to invest as if you are, a professional putting money to work, investing in Apple or Nike or whatever you want to invest in. And but you don't actually have to put in any real money, right? It's almost like a game. And so you get the opportunity of learning what happens. You can feel what happens if you were to invest $500, $1,000, $500,000 into different investments. And I think it's been a really great tool to learn the game and then eventually be able to feel more comfortable going out and investing real money, after you saved and have the money to put to work. So I think those are two great resources that you can use.
So I have two websites as resources for youth. The first one is goalsetter.co. And then the second one, unalarmingly, is mymoney.gov, which is a government website, but it definitely has a lot of good information, especially when it comes to setting a financial pathway for youth and teens. And then I never think it's too early to read Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. So those will be my three bonus resources.
I would recommend shameless plug, Goal Setter. They're a company I'm involved with. They're a financial app that allows you to, create some savings goals if you are looking for that, especially at the younger level. Um, in this climate, everyone's teaching people, it's kind of a consumer climate. So Goal Setter is an app that you can use when it comes to resources as books for a young teen or young adult. I would highly recommend I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I think that book is just a great mindset book when it comes to your finances. It teaches you different tricks of the trade, understanding your own investment portfolio. Another one, Richest Man in Babylon. It may not teach you like financial lessons or financial strategies, but it teaches you kind of your behavior around finance and money management and different things like that. So those are two books that I would recommend right off the bat. And then for an app, I'd also recommend anyone to get a budget app, whether it's Mint, Clarity, YNAB, or acronym for You Need a Budget. There's so many different apps. You just got to find out which one works for you. So those are my three suggestions. Oh, and lastly, check out afrugalathlete.com. We try to help athletes and individuals learn more about money management, personal finance through an athlete sports business type of lens.
Well, I consider myself a part of the youth, but for kids maybe younger than me, um, I would say, like I said before, the biggest resource you can use as you're starting to get into this world where you're actually making your own money is just doing your homework. Man, I know I've been saying that this whole time, but I really believe that, you taking your time to really learn what exactly money is, how can you make it, how can you lose it, how can you double your money, how can you triple your money, how can you invest it, how can you put your money in a 401k, how can you, like, all that stuff. I feel like it's important for the youth to learn so that when you do get to those situations where you now are at the age where you're able to get your 401k, you know exactly what to do. Or when you're about to purchase a house, you understand the the risk and and everything that goes into buying a house. And um, like Dr. Ross was talking about, going to buy a car, just understanding that, you know, understanding what exactly a mortgage is, understanding how you able to do that, understanding how to take a loan out, understand that you have to pay that loan back. Like all the little things like that, I feel like is very important. So and with that being said, you just have to do your homework, just read. Everything is in the book. It's going to tell you everything that you need to know. And I'm a sole believer in that. So
I would recommend to young people. I think that they need to be cognizant of, they need to interact with banks, establish either savings accounts, checking accounts. You can interact with credit cards if you're going to be responsible, because that's one of the quickest ways, if you're not responsible, to establish kind of negative credit history. But if you're responsible, you have a credit card, you pay it on a regular basis, you pay it off, you don't let the balance accrue, you don't have to expose yourself to penalties, then that's another opportunity for you to interact with financial resources. I think also for young people that find themselves in unique situations, whether they be an actor or a professional athlete, you need to talk with financial planners, and you need to surround yourself with a lot of individuals that have financial information, and digest all of this information, and then make some of the best decisions that you can make based on the information that you have at hand. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to this. Some wonderful questions. And again, I recommend young people take this very, very, very seriously, because your credit report will follow you. And in many cases, people run up against all these questions about why they can't get a loan for a certain thing, and they finally they have to pull their credit report and they see that there are miscellaneous things on their credit report that they easily could have taken advantage of. The last thing I did not speak on, and I'll close with this, is that student loans are very, very important. Many young people have to get student loans to get through school, particularly as undergraduates or even graduate students. And you need to try and to pay those things off, or to at least make sure you've established a good payment history. Some people that go to professional schools like law school or maybe even medical school, they get tremendously high amounts in student loans. And then some people that go to graduate school or undergraduate school may only get maybe 20 or 30,000. Some people that go to professional schools may have well over $100,000 in debt in terms of student loans. But if you take your time and you pay that money off and you pay it on a regular basis each month, it'll begin to go down. And you don't want that to show up on your credit history when you begin to enter the workforce as soon as you get out of professional school or graduate school.
Some of the advice I would give to younger players that are, about to go into the league, to wherever their situation was before, they're now going to be making millions and millions of dollars. And what I would recommend to the younger people coming to this league is keep your circle small when it comes to the financial world. And when it comes to picking a financial advisor or picking estate planners or accountants, do your history and understand that you do not have to be loyal to any of these people. I feel like asking the right questions to these people, to these accountants, to these financial advisors, making sure that they're able to do what you want them to do. Like I said, when you go read books and you go, reading articles and you see certain stuff, and that's the kind of stuff you want your financial team to do. If they can't do that, understand that this is all a business. You have the right to fire them. You can look for someone else. You can, I feel like that's kind of where, us basketball players, especially in this field, kind of lose ourselves, that we don't owe any of these people anything. I feel like just doing your homework on these people before you choose these people to be working for you is very important. And I think that's probably the number one thing. And just, a lot of people like to talk about saving your money, saving. And in this field, like, we go from $0 to, like I said earlier, millions and millions of dollars. So yes, saving is very important. But at the same time, you want to be able to, get your feet wet, at least, when you first get into the league, when it comes to the investing side, just so you understand it a little bit. I'm not telling you to invest all your money, because that's not smart either. But, just kind of understand, the stock market, late stage investments, growth stage investments. Just learn about those things. So then when you do, hopefully get to that second contract where you're making more and more money, you now have money that, you're able to, I guess, essentially play with a little bit when it comes to those investments. So I feel like, like I said at the beginning, just doing your homework on the people that you're going to have in your corner when it comes to the financial side. And if they're not able to perform to the likelihood that you like, fire them. And they will understand that, because they are in this business world. And the quicker that you can understand that, I feel like the better it'll be, holding everybody accountable for what they're supposed to be doing. And that's really about it.